This one is about Whoopi Goldberg. I saw that little clip. Goldberg, Goldberg. Go ahead and play it.
With all your husbands?
No.
Any of them?
No, I don't think so.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's an amazing thing to say, isn't it?
But it's the truth.
Yeah, it's still amazing.
Oh, well, all right.
You walked up at... Did you have church weddings?
No. Let me see. I think there's a Vegas, and maybe one was a church, and one was a house wedding.
Why did you do it if you weren't in love with them?
Because I wanted to feel normal. And it seemed to me that if I was married, I'd have a much more normal life. But clearly that's not the case. That's not a good reason to get married. You have to actually want a life with someone through ups and downs. And I just discovered that wasn't for me.
How many times have you been in love?
Once.
Who with?
A man.
Go on.
I've gone as far as I'm going.
Can I chuck a name in?
You could chuck a name.
Ted?
You asking me if I was in love with Ted? Is that the man I'm talking about?
Yes.
No.
Really? Mm-hmm. Would we know who the person is?
No, and that's the beauty.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, I know.
This is bombshell time.
Well, it's not a real bombshell, but I snuck a couple in on y'all and
You did?
nobody knew.
Do you wish you'd married that person?
No.
Why?
Because what I know now is I don't want to live with I don't want to live with anyone.
Yeah, but you tried with the wrong guys.
No, I think I tried it with probably the right guys for other people. But it wasn't them, it was me. Because I actually like living on my own. I like being able to go up and down my stairs, farting like a queen, and not having to explain. I like being able to smoke all over my house and not have someone go, you know, I like my privacy. I like.
Well, everybody's eating when the clip is playing. Let's go ahead and dive into it, family. I know there's a video just came out this morning. Whoopi Goldberg says she wasn't in love with any of the men she married. Go ahead and start off with you first, Bruce. What are your thoughts about that? You saw that clip, Bruce? You there?
Talking about me, right?
The guy at the bottom right hand of the screen.
Oh, shoot. She it's sad, man. A lot of women are doing that. A lot of women are associating, basically saying normal is associated. It's associated with not having ups and downs. You're going to go through life with ups and downs. And she just, her level of sacrifice and selflessness is not up to par with having a companionship, a marriage. And I have to say I really think it's really nowadays, marriage is starting to be more fitting for family and having kids. And if you're not having kids, then there's no point to get in it, because the way the woman's mind work is happiness have to be at the forefront and all these other things that really don't have anything to do with, you know, the driving force of having a family and accomplishing things, you know what I'm saying, as a generation moving forward for your children. So it's just out of order now. And when you hear people like Whoopi Goldberg with her influence saying things like this, it's just a matter of time before younger women are gonna hear this and adopt these same ideology or principles, and then try to go out in the world and portray this. And then you wonder why we stuck. We don't have any family reunions, and we don't have any of these things. Look at who are the icons, you know, of this generation. Look at the women that these young girls are looking up to.
I actually don't see a problem with what she said. I mean, you said it's because of ups and downs and women's happiness at the forefront.
No, well, when you got women that aren't a part of our race, specifically for Black women. You got women that's white and outside of the race, doctors writing articles saying that singlehood is the way to go. You know, it's less stressful. It's less harmful and all this other stuff. And you can have a fruitful life, purposeful. It's freeing, you know. And that actually it destroys the nuclear family, the mentality of actually wanting to be in a nuclear family. Because now you're shaping these women's minds and say, hey, look, you don't need to. I think shit, what's the girl name from Carisha Please?
Young Miami.
I think Young Miami just made a crazy post saying that she don't want to be married because men aren't faithful and all this other stuff. Like this whole
No,
myth.
that's not why I didn't have a problem with what she said. I don't think marriage is for everyone. Everyone was not put on the planet to get married. That's not everyone's purpose in life. Some people are meant
So
to get married.
why do you think that?
It's a biblical principle. I can pull up the scripture for you, but
So
everyone is
the
not.
the first two people on the planet that had
Adam and Eve.
any representation of a relationship was a man and a woman, right?
Adam and Eve, yes, and they were meant to
Be fruitful and multiply.
populate the earth, right? So the earth is populated, but everyone's not meant to get married. Everyone is meant to have a purpose. Everyone's meant to serve God, but everyone's not meant for marriage. And Whoopi Goldberg was getting married to people so she felt normal, but I don't think she should have gotten married at all. She shouldn't have had marriage and divorce. I think she should have just never gotten married. She was so adamant about looking normal that she got married 3 times to the wrong person. She should have just stayed single.
Well,
she probably wasn't meant to be married.
What do you think about women and men who want to have children? Shouldn't they get married?
Absolutely.
So
but not everybody
we can both sit here and agree and say that if you actually want to have kids, then marriage is for you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
she obviously wasn't meant to get married. She said it multiple times.
She had a child.
I just think she shouldn't have wasted 3 men's time marrying them when she knew that's not what she wanted from the very beginning.
But she wanted a child, though.
I don't think she wanted a child.
Her issue is she didn't love any of the men that she was with. But the thing is, you don't have to love them, because the bottom line should be ushering in your procreation, ushering into the world your seed. That should be the bottom line, and seeing them, take on your inheritance and moving forward and keeping our bloodline rolling. Creating that immortality, as I state so authentically. But people get into these situations for this feeling of emotion, and then when it don't work out, they peel out. So what are you telling women today? Oh, if you don't feel like it's for you, then just bounce. It's just a selfish. I think it's just very selfish.
All right, let me get some other people. Balance, what are your thoughts about it?
You know what? I think Whoopi, I'm happy she's speaking her truth. I'm happy that she's being honest.
Wow.
I wish she was more honest with herself earlier. I think a lot of people have a lot of peer pressure because of society, and they try to do the societal norms, even you, Bruiser. And, they get married early, and then they decide, you know what? I shouldn't have did that. Or I shouldn't have done it at this time. I was trying to do the right thing. And then we have a 50% divorce rate. So I think if more people were true to self, then we wouldn't have all of these issues. Like, you got to be real with yourself. Like, even me.
It's about the kids, though. So whenever you bring up my example or anything I've done, it wasn't for the kids. So that's why that's what I was telling Kelly. Everybody wants to go and have kids, right? But nobody wants to have marriage. They want to just still have kids.
Yeah,
that's why I say if you actually want to have kids, then you should be trying to get married.
Let me finish.
Because we know what it does to the community. We know what it does to people when you don't have 2 parents in the household.
I agree. But in that scenario, people, I don't think you had children until recently, right? But you still been married before.
Yeah, I got 1 kid and I got another one on the way. If I did not want to have kids, I would not be married.
I agree. That's you. And I agree that people that want to have children should wait till marriage. I think it's really irresponsible to have children and not be in that union of marriage, because that's protection for a child. And we all know that children who are raised in a two-parent household fare better. That's the reality of it. We just don't want to take accountability because we're like, oh, I was young, I made mistakes and all that. And that happens, it does happen. But in actuality, you have to be responsible as a person. And the most responsible thing you could do is get married before you have children. I definitely agree with that. But on the other hand, I also don't believe everybody wants children. And I also don't believe that marriage is for everyone. And if you don't want children and you don't want marriage, that is perfectly okay.
So
and you don't have to be married.
So you make
no. I wasn't. We were never disagreeing, honey. You always
No,
think
okay,
it's
okay.
a battle.
But Whoopi was saying, oh, I didn't love any other man. That's why I don't want to get married.
She should have never
So what
married
do you think
any
about
of
that?
them. She should have never married any of them. And I don't know what you were about to say, Jay. We probably were going to say the same thing. Maybe that child was a byproduct of her marriage. It doesn't necessarily mean that she wanted to have that child, which happens a
See,
lot.
that's an excuse that women try to use. They open their legs and they let you nut at them and they say that's not what I wanted.
No, I mean, it's different in a marriage.
That's an accountability issue.
I think she went all the way of trying to do the social norm thing. She went all the way. She had the husband, she had the kid, and then she realized, hey,
but this notion that I'm married and I'm having sex with my husband, unprotected, and I didn't want to have, there's nobody on this panel that can convince me that that's a justified excuse.
I think I'm not here to judge Whoopi or say, or judge her situation. I think she did what society told her to do, which was to have a family. And that's what she did. And later she regretted it. She probably didn't want children or marriage. I don't know, because she didn't specify in this clip.
You're saying that society told her to do this?
No, I'm saying that she felt pressured by society, which is what she said.
She said she felt I thought she thought it was just normal. I didn't hear her say she felt pressured by society.
Societal norms are very
You said societal norms?
Honey, how would you describe it?
because before there was a society, we were still marrying and procreating. So to say that up until societal norms, that's what created the whole notion of being married and having kids.
No,
we
it's always been tradition.
Married and having kids before we even had the United States.
That was always our tradition, right? Absolutely. But not everybody in our tribes were married and had children either. If you want to take it further back.
Good, but the whole point was to have kids. It's to have kids and have your kids can look up and say, that is my mother and that is my father. But now today, what's happening? That is my mother. But they can't point to the other person because in a lot of these cases, they don't even know who their father is.
So do you think that it would have been better for her to stay single?
No, she wanted to have a child. So she should have gotten married.
She's saying now that she never wanted to get married. So
you think
it would have been better for her to stay single and not get married versus having 3 husbands and having children?
She wanted to have a child, so she did.
I'm saying, what do you think is better? What do you think is better for her to have just stayed single and be like, you know what, this is not what I want. I'm just going to be single for the rest of my life.
I think what she did was the right thing. She had a child in her marriage. That was the right way to do it. Because whenever you have a marriage and you have children in a marriage, it's undeniable. There's no denying that is my mother and that is my father. But if there's no adultery or infidelity going on inside. But for the most cases, when you are married, you can point to your mother and your father. When you're not married and you're out here and you're just having sex with anybody, having kids, you can only point to your mother. The only way you can point to your father is a DNA test. And we're lucky to have that because we have the technology now. So that is why it's so strong to have a marriage. Because it's undeniable.
No one's negating that point. It's the fact that she should have never gotten married to begin with versus having a child and 3 husbands.
So basically what you're saying is if she had
should have
not
stayed
gotten
single.
Married, if she had not gotten married, she would have never had a child. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Kelly, I think you need to define. Like when you say single, you mean in single, not like no marriage,
no babies, no husbands.
Oh, okay, so when you say no babies, then that's different. When you say no babies, then that's different. I can relate to that. If she's
did
not
say
having
that.
any kids, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and do that. But
Well, you were saying remain single, and I think it need to be clarified what single was to you.
No
You know,
babies,
Bruiser
no
was
husbands. She
right.
should have
So
just lived
yes,
her
the
best
Bruiser
life
was,
by herself and not affected any other human beings in the
But
process.
is
Yeah.
that realistic right now today? Is that what's going? Oh, I'm gonna stay single and not have kids. Is that what's happening?
Do
Yeah,
you think having
actually,
3 husbands is realistic?
That's what's
She should have,
happening.
if she was gonna do it, she should have gotten married, had her baby with her first husband, and stayed married to that man until she died. Now she has 3 divorces and a child with the 2 parents still not together. That is destroying 4 lives now versus her just being single and living her best life. I think people like her should have never gotten married, should have never had children, because that's not what she wanted. That is what I'm saying.
All I'm
Sorry
saying
if it
is,
wasn't clear.
I could agree with you if you said stay single, and if the stats and realistically everything shows in representation that women who stay single aren't having kids. If that was the case and I could see that, then I would say, yeah, that makes sense. But I know that these women out here are not moving like that where they have control over their vaginas.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of people. They don't have control over their members,
So you're making
ladies
my
and
point.
men.
So now that you know that women don't really have the capacity to even have control over their vagina,
Neither do
why in
men.
the hell is single even anything that you should even advocate for?
Well, like I said, it is a scripture. Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, said, I wish all men were like me, saying he was celibate. And he said, marriage and children distract from serving Christ. But since most people cannot be like me, go ahead and get married so you can have sex and not be sinning. But a lot of people cannot give up sex just to serve Christ. So singleness is actually better for your purpose. But most people are not willing to make that sacrifice.
I agree. A lot of people not willing to make that sacrifice. They still want kids and they don't want to have marriage. But I honestly feel like the data and the way we're going, the trajectory, the way we're going is saying, hey, look, you could still have kids. You don't need to be married to no man. You don't need to submit to no man. Just remove man, period. Have all the kids you want. Be single and be purposeful and free.
That's not the narrative I'm saying. I'm saying
it's not what we're
don't have
saying, but this is the
children,
reality.
don't
of
get
things.
married if you're not going to be responsible for the children you produce and the man you decide to marry. Because when you get married, you are now responsible for supporting your husband. And you can
I
drag a
agree.
man down if you do not properly support him. You can affect his life in a negative or a positive way. So if you're not going to be 100% in, you should never get in to begin with. If you're not going to be a great mother to your children, you shouldn't have children. That's what I'm saying. So she obviously didn't want that. She said, I like being single. I like to fart and whatever. Then you should have just stayed single instead of interrupting 4 people's lives. You have children. I don't know how many kids she has.
She got
You have
one
children
child. She got
now
one daughter.
and 3 ex-husbands. Stay single.
Okay. I'll let somebody else go. I've been rambling too much.
yeah, let's get some people involved in here.
I just wanted to add to everyone's point and like to the video, to Kelly's point, I do agree that I don't believe that every woman and man qualifies to be a husband or a wife. I think that it is a badge of honor, and in that being a badge of honor, everyone can't have it. Everyone can't get it. If it's that special, it can't be accessible to everyone, and everyone can't qualify and bring the things to the table that need to be brought to the table to be, you know, a good spouse. So I do agree with that point that everybody should not be married. I also do believe that children should be the reason and main foundation for a couple deciding to get married, because, you know, there's really no point, in my opinion, if you don't want children to get married, because that's the whole purpose, is to, you know, procreate. But I think, you know, women like Whoopi and women her age are pushing this narrative to women my age in their 20s that, again, like Bruiser was saying, you know, it's, you know, Lisa Ray and her friends have their show, you know, and they always speak about, you know, there's no good men, you know, there's, there's just no options available. But, you know, some of them have children, and, you know, one would have to ask is like, okay, well, these men were good enough to have children with, but they weren't good enough to get married to, you know? So I just think older women are pushing this narrative not because they don't want to get married, but because they could not secure marriage from a man. So I think, it's a difference between not wanting marriage and not being able to obtain marriage. And I think that's what most of these 40 plus, 50 plus, celebrity, Taraji P. Henson's, they're pushing this narrative that they're happy because you have no choice but to be happy now. But I don't think it's genuine. Of course, if you asked them 20 years ago if they felt this way, I doubt they would say these things, because they were, some of these women were some of the most sought after Black women in the entertainment industry, and they're now 50 plus saying, there's no good men, or, all these things. But it's like, you weren't saying that a couple of years ago when, you were benefiting from whatever privilege or whatever things, was happening. So I just think it's pushing a bad narrative to younger women.
All right.
The purpose of marriage is not to have children. That's not the purpose. There's a book.
Do you not think that should
Monroe.
be like a main factor though? Because I thought we just said you shouldn't get married unless you want children. So why would
That's what
children-
Bruiser said, and no one agreed with him. There's a book by Miles Monroe. Everyone should probably read it if you're thinking about getting married. It's called The Purpose and Power of Love and Marriage. That's not the primary purpose. Children are not. If you're going to have children, yes, you should be married, but that's not the primary purpose for marriage.
If you should be, then I think we should make that the primary purpose. Like that's setting the foundation, having marriage and then children.
So if you're going to have sex, then you should be married. It is not for children. It is to not sin sexually, because most people cannot, again, control their penis and their vagina. So they should be married to do that. Yes, that produces children, but the primary purpose for marriage is not to have kids.
Right, but everyone's not a Christian, so to follow the premarital sex rule doesn't apply to everyone if you don't believe in religion.
So no children would exist, right, if they were not having premarital sex, right? No children outside of marriage would exist if people were not having sex. So it's like a double-sided coin. You got to decide which one you want to do. You either got to follow the rules or don't follow them. If you don't want children outside of marriage, you shouldn't be having sex outside of marriage, Christian or not. I'm done.
I love to hear what Jay got to say. Like, you've been too quiet, and I really want to hear what you got to say. Like, come on, man.
No, I think with Whoopi, there's a difference. I mean, I don't think Whoopi was pushing a narrative. I think she was just speaking her truth in relation to realizing that she should not have been married. She should have never been married. So I don't think she has an agenda that she's pushing. And Whoopi has always been, she's had a lot of trauma early in her life.
We all saw Color Purple.
I mean, realistically, that, a portion of that could have been her life story. That shit could have been her autobiography. You know what I mean? Based on how she came up. So she was trying to fit in a place where she didn't belong. She in the midst of that, you definitely burn some buildings down in the midst of trying to find out, where your home is. So I don't necessarily think now Lisa Ray and them, that's a difference. I think that they're pushing an agenda because they trying to just die on the lie. That's how I feel about Lisa Ray and them. You know what I mean? I call them like the Mount Rushmore, Sally's Beauty Supply. And I feel that they just gonna fall on the sword, They're not gonna talk to these young chicks realistically and correct them on what they made. Vivica Fox, like you said, was one of the most sought after people who dealt with 50 Cent. Like, there were a bunch of mistakes in there. Like, did you really think that you and 50 were going to get married and have kids and have a long lasting? Like, nah, that's not the case.
Exactly.
You chose that dude because he was hot and he was dangerous and you liked that shit. Deep down in your soul, that's what you were attracted to. Now that you're 50 something and you sitting up and you fried as hell sitting on a panel, you're not going to be truthful. Tell these young chicks what it really is, You know what I'm saying? And they don't do that. So I think there's a difference between what Whoopi was saying versus the agenda that those particular women are pushing.
Do you think it could still be pushing a bad agenda that she will openly admit that she was never in love with any of the men that she married, but still proceeded to have a child in her marriage, which means she
Yep.
had a child with somebody that she said she was never in love with, or even,
I'm-
you know.
I mean, the main thing she said is she should have never gotten married. You know, I think that's the main agenda, that she should have never been married, because there are plenty of women out here in marriages right now that know, why the hell am I in this? You know, I don't really like this guy. I'm comfortable, like he's provided a lot, but I don't really like him. I don't feel no type of way from him. I don't want to have his kid.
Nope.
But I'm in this because everybody else likes this for me. You know,
But did
when
she say she didn't want to have a kid?
No.
you said, did Whoopi say she did not want to have the kid? She didn't specify that. She didn't specify that. In that particular clip, it didn't sound like she specified that.
You
But,
got to be
you
able
know,
to see what the narrative is, man. You got to see the skeleton of this whole. Make as much money as you can to eliminate the need for men, so that you can financially afford to fund your own lifestyle and happiness. And when you want kids, have them with the best male portraying the best genes. If all else fails, the state will help you provide for the kids. But by any means necessary, eliminate the need for the man. When you do this, consumerism is up, because women who are single make owners rich and make prison wardens rich, create retirement funds for the judges and family court prosecutors, and police pensions. Therapists will have a salary. We can go on. You got to be able to look at the skeleton of this whole thing on how this mentality, it creates a domino effect that affect other things down the line. That your happiness and your need for love is just all a path to destruction.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that was the agenda that Whoopi was pushing in that scenario. You know, while other people can take what they take from it, you know, us as individuals, we could watch the same thing and pull different things from it. I don't think that was her agenda. Of course, there are women that fall in that category. Of course, there are women that may pull that from what she said. You know what I mean? But in reality, Whoopi was making more money than Ted Danson when they were together. You know what I mean? She wasn't shooting up. She was shooting across or shooting down. You know what I mean? So that wasn't her situation.
Why did she say that?
You said, why didn't she? Oh, why did she word it how she worded it?
Why did she say that hypergamy is more suitable for her happiness? And the fact that she was the only male suitors that was the only males or only guys that she was interested in or interested in her were guys that were beneath her, or as far as earnings.
I mean, she mentioned a dude, you know, he asked about Ted Danson. She mentioned a dude who has no name. I mean, I don't know if that, do you think that particular person they were talking about, do you think that was somebody that was beneath her?
She said we wouldn't know him.
We wouldn't
He was
know
probably
him.
some nobody that gave her some good dick and she fell in love.
You think? I don't think Whoopi's getting good dick. Yeah, I'm just being honest with you. I think somebody
But
she
she said
loves
that
is
one
somebody.
dude was the only dude she ever loved. So that's why I think, you know, if he's a no, she said we wouldn't know him, meaning, you know, the world wouldn't know him. So this would have to be a regular dude that she fell in love with and got dick down, but she didn't want to commit to him because she said she didn't want marriage.
No, I think she loved them because they were probably compatible. Somebody that she could sit around, smoke cigarettes, and fart with, and they were on the same page. I'll be honest with you. You know, Whoopi ain't the type of person out here like, yo, this nigga gotta blow my back out. I never took her as that type of person. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's just my observation.
And
Can
she
I
even
ask-
said she wouldn't have married him anyway. So she just doesn't feel like marriage is for her. And that's okay.
Right, but how many times does it take you to get married to realize marriage isn't for you? Because she did it 3 times.
3 times. That's how much it takes.
I think Whoopi was just a selfish ass woman. She's the typical woman though. Whoopi's a typical woman. That's you got a lot of women like that. prefer not even to get married, not just to get married, to have kids. They don't want to get married at all. Like you said, they prefer a sperm donor. Most ladies now in 2023, they don't want to get married. They just want the whole give me a baby and then you go about your business. That's the mindset of a lot of these ladies now. So she's speaking for the modern day woman. A lot of them other women, like you said, Vivica Fox, Lisa Ray, they're all speaking for the modern day woman. They talk like that because that's what they want to hear. And these women out here can relate to it. They don't care. They don't, most of them don't want to marry. Most of them don't want to be married. The kids are not. They don't want to be married. And that's fine. Don't get married. But to me, she did it 3 times. I mean, I think she's selfish. How about she never loved any of them? She's a selfish ass heifer, man. So the hell with her ass. I mean, I don't understand why these dudes just see it the first 2 dudes that see this. And somebody should have warned the 3rd dude for being a victim of a whooping. But, you know, Whoopi really prefers a woman anyway. Talking about she just wanted to fit in. Come on, man. Come on, Whoopi. You need to stop this. Fit in for what? What you need to fit in? It's not abnormal to have a child without being married. It's not now. Maybe back in in the 70s and the 60s, yeah. But once the 80s and the 90s turned, it was single baby mamas out here just living their best life. In 2000, they doing it all again. I mean, in 2023, oh man, they prefer that. So live it like it is. Whoopi. Get your wife and move out there to Florida and be another golden girl.
I agree with you 100%. I think as a 23-year-old, I bring a different point of view because, again, I'm 23, so most of my social media is of other 20-year-olds, and up. And what I see girls my age posting is exactly what y'all are talking about. I literally have seen posts because I personally post about, wanting to be married and things like that. And it's always girls posting, I want the baby, fuck the nigga, give me the baby, I don't need the man. Like, they actually are genuinely making posts about this. And I've made posts on my own page about, how delusional it is to say you would want to make a baby with somebody but not want to see forever with that person. Like, it's a mental illness. And I think, it's a trend, but they're actually living this in real life now. Like, there are 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds with 3+ kids with multiple dudes. So it's like, they're not just at this point, it's actually turning into their real life. And that's the problem, which is why we have to speak up against it, because this is an issue.
I think that the issue comes from not having family meetings.
That ain't got nothing to do with family meetings, Kelly.
Absolutely, it does.
No,
if you had
you got
a father,
family meeting all day, but these women are just selfish.
How can you say family meeting, but then when you advocate against marriage?
Just let me know when I can talk. Just let me know.
Come on now, Kelly. Don't act like that.
Listen, if you had a father and a mother in the home daily training their children, and they saw their mother and their father married and happy, and you're talking to them every day, raising them up rightly, they wouldn't even, this is a thought culture for a reason. Their parents aren't teaching their children. They're learning from music videos. They're learning from television. Who is teaching them how to be a lady? Who is teaching them to be married? Who's having these conversations with them? Who's having the conversations, though?
All baby mamas didn't come from single parent households, though. That's the problem. So what about the baby mamas that are coming from 2-parent households? Or the women that have had sex pre-marriage that weren't married, but, again, those women that have the 2-parent households and lost their virginity. So what about that?
Right. You can have 2 parents that are not active parents. That's why I said the family meetings are important. You can have a father that is cheating on the mom and out with his mistress. That's very possible. You can have a father that's there, but not home. He's not.
But I feel like that's moving the goalpost. Like, okay, we're talking about married families. Listen, and we're going to talk about married families.
I know you got your YouTube talking points down. I've heard whatever you say. They've said it already so many times. That's cute. But the reality is,
you don't have to be condescending to make your point.
Okay. The reality is, you can have your points, your talking points, but the reality is there is a problem with families not being together, not teaching their children. If you were 23 and your parents taught you a certain way, you would probably be able to teach other young women around you. How did you learn? Where were you taught? As a 23-year-old woman, who taught you?
Well, I didn't have two parents, so that's why I'm asking you as someone who had two parents, but you're not married yet. So I'm asking, what are we doing then? Because you're trying to say having two parents sets that foundation for how to do things correctly, but
Yes.
okay.
That's correct. I'm not married because I have very high standards because my father was a freaking superhero. But if you ask the guy that's sitting right next to me, that's probably gonna happen very soon, right? Right, baby? Okay.
So why do we always have an issue with YouTube talking points when we're talking
Because I
on
don't
YouTube?
like non-thinkers. I don't like regurgitated points. People say the same thing over and over and over, and it's not a reality. It's just talking. It's like, oh, I
There's
heard somebody
nothing
say
new
this.
under the sun, though.
What's
I heard
When
somebody
regurgitated?
say this, and now I'm going to
Yeah, one at a
repeat it.
time. One at a time. Let's
I
just
heard
have
you
a
say this, and now I'm going to repeat it. Have you taken the thought? Have you processed it through your own brain? Have you come up with your own opinion on it? Not just, oh, I
Has
heard
it
someone say, now
occurred?
I'm going to repeat it. I've heard the same statistics, the same facts, and guess what? Nobody's changing. No one's doing anything differently. You just keep talking about this stuff. Where is the change? When is the reality going to set in that these talking points aren't fixing people's lives?
Has it occurred? Has
You
it
quoting the
occurred?
Bible is a talking point too, though,
Thank you.
and that's not fixing
No,
lives.
quoting the Bible is the thing that changes people's lives. Actually,
Everyone's not
We
a
had the
Christian.
Bible longer than YouTube.
everyone
What has
should be.
changed?
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's the point, though. Has it occurred to you that if anybody adopt any talking points, maybe they actually looked at the context behind it and actually agreed to it? There's nothing new up under the sun.
That is
Why
true. There is
reinvent the
nothing new under
wheel
the sun.
whenever
But
you have articles and reading material? When you read a book or you go to school and you get a degree, nobody says to me, I'm a computer scientist. Nobody say, oh, those scientists talking points. Won't you use your own? Why in
Bruiser
the hell?
Logic came on the show the other day and asked you where you got your points from, and you said you didn't know. It was just something you heard someone else say.
Well,
You just
when did that
something.
happen?
A couple weeks ago, he came on this show and he said you said something. You're like, where did you get that fact from? Where is it? And you're like, I don't know. I heard someone say it.
You ain't never heard me say
Well,
that.
I
I
mean, the
want to see
great
that
thing is
video.
lives are recorded, so you could go back.
I ain't never ever said nothing about it. I ain't know where I got my
Yeah, you were like, I don't
education
need to prove the point because I'm just repeating what I heard someone else say.
Oh, somebody lied then. Anything I ever say, I always substantiate. But let's try to get back to the point. Women don't want to get married because they know that they'll have to meet men on their standards, on their own terms. So ask yourself this question. Everything you do, how you move, when you get married, will your husband support that? I guarantee you can say 75 to 80% of the stuff that women do on a regular, their husband is not going to support that. They're going to have to modify it. They're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to meet these men on their own terms. That's why they don't want to get married.
I want to add something here because, that what you just said, Bruiser, I agree with. Yes, women will have to meet the standards of these men in order to marry them. That's true. But these same men, if these same men are saying, but I'll still give you my sperm and then still give you a baby, and then they still not submitting to you, then, I mean, apparently these women rather choose that than submit to these men, but they still getting what they want.